Hi peeps. Um, so I felt like this was a perfect time to introduce you to a post from the Mythos Medium series that is now in its 8th episode over on Substack and Patreon. I find myself alone tonight and I did not fancy watching TV or reading a book, and I'm in a creative mindset. So I figured this was a happy medium given the fact that it is, I don't know, 10:30 at night. If you have been following along, you will know that this is this series on Substack and Patreon now, is one of my favorite things I get to create, and where I explore how myth and story and spirit all intertwine within our pop culture landscape. Each post starts with like a film or a book or a song or a piece of artwork and delves into the messages that it holds. You know, what's it really saying beneath the surface? What symbols keep repeating throughout? What truth is it whispering about the human experience? And then from that reflection, I create a tarot spread. If you know, you know. But every free post that I put up on Patreon and Substack that are part of the Notes on Becoming series or the Mythos and Medium series, everyone has its own tarot spread, just as a way to sort of have a bit of an exploration and look within over the weekend. So this Mythos and Medium series was meant to be something more fun, and was a way of turning ideas we meet in stories into something that we can actually work with in practice, something that lives in the body and not just on the page or on the screen. And so Mythos and Medium is not about critique or reviews. I don't consider myself informed enough to give an actual review on anything. I can only give my personal opinions and how it affected me. But I suppose it's fun to start a conversation about the various things that are explored and prompt further thinking, further consideration. And as I said, it started out as something that was supposed to be fun, but actually, as you delve into these various narratives, some of them are a little bit more serious and lean into shadow work. So it is more about, I suppose, connection and finding where imagination meets inner work and how we respond to the narratives that we're presented with. It's that meeting point of the mystical and the mundane. So far we have travelled through quite a mix of worlds. We began with Dracula, probably my favourite book. Although I feel like I might be saying that just because I'm being lazy and I don't ever really think about what my favourite book is, but I have got various copies of Dracula, and for multiple reasons, I love it. I've read it multiple times, and yeah, I won't go there right now, but in the Dracula post, we explored fragmented narratives, witnesses, and shadows, and all the ways repression and desire mirror each other. And then we moved into Circe by Madeline Miller, again, one of my favourite books, where her exile became a lesson in finding your voice, owning your voice, and holding your own power. Then I had a nostalgic moment and pushed myself back into the story of the Red Shoes, in particular the movie, the old Hollywood movie. But the Dance of the Red Shoes was, in the post I wrote, was a dance of devotion and destruction. And then following inspiration from one of my elders, We explored ancestral memory in the documentary In Our Mother's Garden. If you haven't seen it, it is available on archive.net, I believe, to watch for free, and it is brilliant. There should be far more documentaries like that, recording and archiving everyday human existence. It was a beautiful, beautiful documentary. And then what else? I had a moment of reflection on an event that I went to at Cambridge University Library, and we explored spiritual inheritance through cosmography, or the medieval manuscripts on cosmography. That one is just, if I could go back and do that again and again, I think I would. It was my absolute, it's like my version of being a child in the sweet shop, being surrounded by old manuscripts. And then the week before last, we explored the artwork of Hilma Klint, which led us into colour and revelation and art as a language of spirit. And we also explored and reflected on the recent interview between Madonna and Jay Shetty, which was a reflection on success, embodiment, and rebellion as something sacred. And then each of those pieces obviously carries its own tarot spread, something for you to work with or journal through, even if you want to use them as journal prompts, and you can find them all on Patreon or Substack. The links will be below. But I wanted to share with you last week's, last week's post where we arrived at Slewfoot by Brom. I did not read this physically. I read it on my Kindle. It's not a Kindle, I read it on my iPad, like an ebook, right? So, because I wanted the colourful illustrations. And it felt like the perfect story for November, for like the darker inward turning work of the shadowy season. If you don't know the story, I know it's done its rounds on YouTube, but if you don't know the story, it follows a young English woman called Abatha, who is left widowed and isolated in a very strict Puritan colony. And the community's piety runs on fear. Women are silenced. The forest is forbidden that's near her. And anything beyond its boundaries is branded as evil. But in the forest lies Slewfoot, who is a horned spirit of the wild, who embodies nature's instinct and renewal. And when Abatha's life starts unraveling following the death of her husband, she crosses the boundary and encounters the ancient presence that is the devil. But he is presented in a more folkloric sense. He is the horned god. He is, the keeper of the wild things. And basically what unfolds is a story about evil, or what is considered evil and what is evil, and is more of a story about return and remembering the sacredness of what has been cast out. And when I first started reading it, obviously the fact that it presents the devil in this dual face, you have the Puritans who are, it's the devil, and you have Abatha who has a connection with him, and he is presented and walks through life as the horned god, who is more sort of similar to Sonunos and Pan, and the keeper of the green wild forests and things, and the wild animals. That was enough to pique my interest. I haven't actually read anything of the Puritan theme. up to that point, but when I first started reading it, it felt quite uncomfortable and almost a little bit claustrophobic, because it's a world of fear and control, and which is something I think we can all recognize, because so many of us in one form or another are raised inside systems and conditioning and structures that teach us to mistrust our instincts in one way or another, and to fear our own wildness, and to label parts of ourselves as dangerous. And to some degree, you know, I understand, but for the most part, yeah, I was a rebellious teen. So in Slewfoot, the devil isn't evil. He's the earthy, you know, the echo of the Green Man sort of old god vibe. And through him, we watch the main character, Abatha, reclaim something she's been taught to fear, which is essentially her own agency, her own power to live in rhythm with the living world rather than against it. And what I really loved about the story is that decay is not seen as ruin. And it doesn't even read as ruin. It doesn't read as rot. It reads as the decay that nourishes, you know, it reflects the cycle of life. And because I'm not one for rot, you know, horror. I like horror, but I don't like rotten, greasy, slimy sort of. I'm not that girl. So although it has this theme of decay, it is not one that is gross. It is ruin. It is not ruin. It is decay in the more beautiful sense that it leads to new life and new growth, the beginning of renewal. So the rot in the forest feeds new life. And what is probably reflected as real, comes across as that real rotten vibe, is the stillness in the church that feels lifeless and dusty and claustrophobic and, you know, controlling. It's a real, like thinking about it makes my, not to say all churches feel like that. I've been in some beautiful churches with some beautiful energy, but the church in the book is, and the pastor in the book is just horrid. But it's really, really interesting to see and to be reminded of, actually, because it happens even now, how quickly people will turn against you if they themselves are fearful. Even if it's not against you, but if they don't want to be seen as being against the majority, because they fear being against the majority, not because they actually believe what the majority are saying. And that's something that runs really deep in the book and is really reflective of various current events and experiences happening in the world today, even if they're ones that we have no involvement with really, and we only see them on the news. It's definitely, you know, you can see the mirroring is just it's unsettling. But I suppose in a way all of that can feel like shadow work when it is done. You know, shadow work takes some doing. You've got to meet things that about yourself that you are uncomfortable about. And so from Slewfoot came the spread that I'm going to share with you today, which I've called the Devil's Mirror. And it's a spread for, I think it works well for moments when you feel split between light and dark, right and wrong, and you sense that there's something deeper that is waiting to be heard in the narrative. It's not necessarily about fixing what feels uncomfortable, but listening to it, listening to the discomfort, and understanding what those rejected parts of ourselves have been trying to project. So here are the 4 positions. There is card 1. I mean, you can, you do you. If you want to pull multiple cards and clarifying cards and use oracles and use different tarot decks and pull 3 cards for each position, you do you. I am not one for controlling any part of your readings or how you respond to these questions. But here are the 4 positions that I came up with. Card 1, what part of you has been demonized, rejected, or taught to fear its own power? I'm reading these and I'm like, catching. My breath is catching. Because I've been there. I think we've all been there to some degree. Card number 2. What truth or gift hides beneath the stories that made you small? Number 3, what pattern or loyalty needs to be released so that renewal can begin? And number 4, what harmony or alignment waits for you when you welcome back that wild part of you, that wild part within? So obviously when you're pulling these cards, notice the symbols and the elements and the absences. I think the absences can be just as clarifying for us. What's not showing, you know. And sometimes it pays off to pull out the cards and leave them on the side, especially if you're unsure, especially when it's shadow work. I think, you know, it pays to mull things over, to consider it, to sleep on it. It really does. Or at least write them down and reflect upon them in a couple of days or in a week, right? Reading those questions is, you know, it triggers the mum in me a little bit as well. You know, I've got 2 boys and I don't think either of them have got to the point where they have faced their own shadows yet. You know, I like to think that I prompt certain reflections and investigations into the self, but obviously we have to mature to a certain point where we can actually make sense of things, right? And find the connections between things. I remember feeling very frustrated when I was a teenager because I had all these feelings and no words for them. And so I couldn't even think about talking to people about anything. But yeah, reading these questions, it makes me a little bit nervous for my children. I mean, I want them to obviously face their shadows, and it's how we evolve at the end of the day. It's how we grow and mature. But the work itself for me was, and is, and still is when we do it as adults, can be unsettling. Again, that word, unsettling, uncomfortable. Anyway, there's the spread. If you would like to read the full essay that I wrote on Slewfoot and or any of the rest of the Mythos Medium pieces, you can find them on Substack and Patreon. That will be the links will be listed below. And I hope that you have found this interesting. Do you know what actually I feel like I should say? The inspiration for these was watching, I had a binge session when I was particularly poorly, and I watched Sabrina, what was it? It's Chaos, isn't it? The new Sabrina, you know, not the old one, the new Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. It's not Sabrina the Teenage Witch, though, is it? It's like, I don't know, the one on Netflix with the blonde bob. I binge watched that, and after going to the movies, they all go to the milkshake shop and sit around and discuss and debate and have really lively debates about what the real message was, and in the movie they watched, and what was really happening. And part of me felt a little bit jealous, like I want that. I want to go to the movies with my friend, then go to the milkshake shop and have lively debates about what's actually happening. It's not something I've ever experienced. I think when I was a teenager, I was always just watching things for the sake of watching them, and I either liked it or I didn't. There was no sort of reflection on my part. If the teenagers are doing that today, then all power to them, because they've got better reflective practices and I suppose comprehensive understanding of narratives than I ever had at that age. But yeah, so I was like, damn it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for me. So yeah, please, if you like this, please comment. And if you read them on the Substack or the Patreon posts, where they are both free and available, you just have to be like a free member. You don't have to pay anything. Please comment and tell me what you think about these posts and whether you agree or disagree. I don't care if you disagree. Feel free to. I love different opinions, and especially over things like pop cultural, absolutely. I'm here for it. So yeah, thank you for spending some time with me here and getting me through the cold night. And have a wonderful rest of the week. And I'll see you soon.